This certainly is a tremendous atmosphere. As always, the most perfect setting for a monster final. Back in again towards Declan O'Sullivan, has a swing of the left foot and puts it over the bar. They are tormenting Cork, and it's Declan back into Cooper. This time it is the clinical finish. Hurley's looking for it, gets it, swings it on the left, and Cork squeeze even closer to Kerry. Kerry win back the Munster Cup. They go on to the All-Ireland quarter-finals.
The Kingdom have played in 12 quarter-finals and only lost twice. Nice ball inside for Donica Walsh, and that's over the bar. There's superiority on the field, reflected now on the scoreboard. Kerry with ease, only in first gear.
Close to 60,000 have gathered here in Croke Park to see Dublin and Meath meet for the 60th time in the championship. And here's a goal chance, and they're in, and it's Paul Flynn. Here's Eamon Wallace, has got 1 point, and now he's got another. And Meath are absolutely flying. Great save, Mannion in after it, goal! And they've done the double in the province for the first time in 71 years. And the game is on, a place in the All-Ireland semi-final up for grabs. And McCauley with a burst of speed, and McCauley! Jack McCaffrey going round the back, McCaffrey is through! Oh! What a goal from Jack McCaffrey! A stunning strike, and it's Jim Gavin's Dublin who take their place in the All-Ireland semi-final.
All right, well, clearly a match to savour. Now, lads, before we get your opinions, maybe we could talk about how the teams might line out. Ciaran.
Yeah, well, I suppose Dublin have been quite consistent in the selection all year. There's, you know, Darren Daly was probably unlucky to lose out in the full back line, but Kevin O'Brien has done reasonably well since he came in. You know, Kevin Nolan is back fit, you know, All-Ireland, man of the match in the All-Ireland 2 years ago. He's pushing for that half-back line, but, you know, McCarthy and McCaffrey have been very, very strong. Midfield very consistent the last day against Cork. McCauley and O'Sullivan were very, very strong. It's probably in the forward line where you might see changes. You know, Dermot Connolly was on the edge of the square the last day. You know, he might be moved back out wing forward. Didn't really fire in there. And Dean Rock, who has had very, very huge impact every time he's come on, done very well in the National League final. He seems to be in form, very dangerous with ball in hand. And Paddy Andrews has also returned to fitness, and he was very effective in the league. He created a lot of space for Mannion and Bernard Brogan inside. So probably maybe 1 or 2 changes, but maybe he might go Connolly at half forward and maybe give Dean Rock his well-deserved chance at the edge of the square.
Philip, what have you made of this Dublin team this year?
I think when you look through that Dublin team, the one thing you see is pure pace. That's what we're seeing today as well with Mayo. Once they got their game going, it was pace that caused the damage. Yeah. And you look at that Dublin team, they've paced throughout. Jack McCaffrey at wing half-back, just his sight to behold, to be honest. And that's the youth coming through as well. And we've seen that with the underage teams that Dublin have had, that they've coming through and they're bringing freshness into the team as well. And I think midfield access as well. You look at Stephen Cluxton kicking the ball out to Michael Dara McCauley and O'Sullivan. That's really that diamond that Kerry need to get some sort of stop on.
Okay. And Kevin, how might Kerry line out? Obviously, this is all conjecture, but
sure, yeah. But well, there's a fair bit of picking to be done, because what we do know is Killian Young now has fractured his ankle, or certainly damaged his ankle badly enough to be out of contention.
Yeah, good wishes to him. That's lousy look.
Of course, yeah. And you know, Tomás O'Shea is struggling a little bit with a back injury. So there's a fair bit of picking. Whether Griffin goes to full and Mark O'Shea goes back to his best position in the corner, they'll have to think about that. And they'll have to think about the half-back line, because, you know, they're going to be up against very pacey Dublin attackers. Moran and Buckley at midfield. Anthony Marr, I'm not sure where he's at in terms of his rehab. So that's another bit of thought is going to have to go into that. Up front, I think they have the best, they have the most manoeuvre room. You know, Cooper went to 11, Des, if you remember, because of the shackles of playing in the corner and mass defence.
Double marked.
Yeah, and sweepers and so on. Dublin play full up, man on man. So you could see Cooper going back into right corner and Declan Sullivan going back to his favourite position of 11. I wouldn't that put the cat among the pigeons in terms of the Dublin full back line and the sort of pressures or perceived pressures that they're under. Donaghy really searching for form. Very hard to switch it on and off. So he's struggling, there's no doubt about that. James O'Donoghue was back in contention and he had a really excellent season to date for Kerry. So, you know, and they have to think about Jack McCaffrey and they have to think about Cian O'Sullivan. So Darren O'Sullivan might match up there.
I'm just wondering, supposing they did put Colm Cooper in the corner on the basis that he'd be one-on-one, would Dublin, do you think, adapt to that, Philip, or would they leave it be just man-on-man?
When we looked at Dublin during the league, I think I anticipated that come championship time we'd see a few changes. They might drop players back and try and adjust their game a little. They probably didn't want to show too much during the league, but so far in the championship they haven't done that. And this full back line maybe has been exposed a few times. But I think if I was an opposition player, I'd much rather see Colin Cooper playing in the half-forward line. When he's closer to goal, he causes a lot more damage. And similar with Declan O'Sullivan, his strength is coming at pace through the middle, carrying the ball.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you want to play your best players in the best positions, and I think if Kerry want to get over this hurdle, that's what they should do.
All right, then. Well, let's talk about the approaches then. And Ciaran, you're making the point that Kerry have had two different approaches in the last two games.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in the last two games, certainly against Cavan. Now, you have to, they were very, very flat that day, but it was more how they set up, and we see them breaking out of defence here. And where Kerry are going to get at Dublin is their forward line, but that's Darren O'Sullivan, Galvin, Dunica Walsh and Colin Cooper, all back in the half-back line. So there, Colin Cooper pulls up and Mark O'Shea goes forward here. He's isolated, there's nobody inside where that key threat should be. And they done this all day, and it was a very strange setup, whether they were preparing for Dublin, whether they were trying to play their cards close to their chest. But here we have again, you know, we freeze it again, and you've got Cooper, Galvin, O'Sullivan, and you have Darren O'Sullivan all again back in that defensive position. So these are the key guys they're going to have to get at Dublin. If Kerry are going to get their scores, they have to be penetrating further down the line, and the gaps that Dublin leave in between the full back line, the half back line, is where they have to get at. You know, when you run this on, you see Dunica Walsh is also back. You know, it comes on, and he's the fifth man back. So they've left Donaghy isolated up the far end of the pitch, and as Kevin already alluded to, he's not playing with form.
But
so
maybe that's the way to stop Dublin, is it?
I don't really think so. I think, you know, we've a clip coming up later that really demonstrates Kerry at their best. Here we are, you know, David Moran going forward, and again you've Sullivan and Galvin all behind the play. If it comes to Shane Enright, very little options, and they just into Donaghy and Cavan sweep it up. So, you know, they were flat that day. They never reached the intensity. The quality of their tackling was poor. You know, they've been behind closed doors. Nobody seems to know what way they're preparing and what way they play, you know.
Can I just add to Ciaran the point he made there just at the end, that the quality of their tackling has been poor. When that half-forward line pushed back, the ones that he was highlighting, their tackling was laughable. I mean, they were just putting hands in and letting lads run by them. And if the gap is too big and the half-forward line cannot connect with the full line, well, you're going to be extremely isolated. And the pace that Dublin have in those positions are going to let them get to the front ball. When the ball comes in, they're going to be able to play from in front, and that's going to cause a lot of trouble. You have to have a reasonable spacing between the full-back and half-back line.
What do you think, Philip? Is it a gamble if they were to do that?
I think that's a conundrum they face. Do they try and stop what Dublin do, or do they play to their own advantages? I think the question is, do they thrust in their own defence to stop the Dublin forwards?
Yeah. Well, they've had so many injury problems in the defence, you know, that do they trust them to go man-to-man? If they put an extra man back there, or they try crowd the defence, then they run the risk of not being able to push up and Stephen Cluxton's kick-outs, which they're going to have to do, which they'll try and do. So Kerry's strength is attacking football, but whether their defence is going to be able to hold the forward line is the big question mark.
Plus, they're also an aging team as well, and for a half-forward line and half-back line to try and push up and support that full forward line, maybe they certainly don't have those players that are fit to do that constantly during a match, but we see Dublin's players doing it all the time, but that's the question mark why Kerry can do it. Personally, I don't think that they have the legs to get up, so I think they have to go with some sort of more attacking approach than they did against Cavan.
All right, and you're going to show us now another attacking
the flip side is positive, Kerry, and the first half there is against Cork in the Munster final, where, you know, they racked up 110, and this is their forward line in more attacking position. That great angle ball in, you know, where they've got runners, support players coming through. James O'Donoghue in this case doesn't need them, and I think this is the key difference why Donaghy may not start. The three guys with the low centre of gravity in there that day caused them a lot of problems. You know, Anthony Marr gave them a great platform midfield, but here's a great ball from Cooper. You know, this is a goal chance for James O'Donoghue. Three support players coming through. You know, probably should have laid it off. You know, he gets in a position. Dunica Walsh was the man to give it to him. It's in the back of the net. But this is the sort of game that Kerry need to play to get at Dublin, to have people. Here's Cooper, and he gets the goal, comes straight down that central channel. He does have another option inside, but puts it in the back of the net. Another diagonal ball in. Galvin is in that position. He's in that zone that's going to get at Dublin, and they get through. And that was their best half of football all year. And that's the way you would expect Kerry to play on Sunday when they come to take on the Dubs. But again, they're probably worried about their defence and whether they can hold the Dublin forward line. And we saw against Cork, Dublin are still creating the chances. They may not be finishing them, but they're still creating numerous goal chances.
One of these days,
and if they click, if Bernard Brogan improves, Dermot Connolly improves, I just don't know whether the Kerry will have that pace to hold the Dublin forward line.
All right, is there any advantage to Kerry, Philip, that we don't know how they're going to line up and Dublin don't know how they're going to line up?
I think
the
there's
uncertainty.
There's a certain amount of advantage to that, but I'm sure if things aren't working out for Dublin, they can make the change themselves.
Yeah.
It comes down to the end of the day where Dublin can impose their game plan on Kerry. Kerry will obviously want to play a slower paced game, I think, than what Dublin want to play. Dublin want to play at pace the whole time, and that's why we've seen against Cavan, maybe that was them trying to get some sort of game plan in place for what they're going to come against Dublin, to try and slow the game down, get men behind the ball, but then they weren't doing what they've done against Cork when they were getting support runners coming through and they were creating goal chances themselves.
Well, Kevin, some people have said Dublin's weakest area is the full back line. Is that fair?
No, I don't think it is, but you're right. A lot of pundits, a lot of supporters and a lot of the opposition teams are looking at them. And when I hear that, I generally, always say to myself, what's going on in the half-back line and the midfield area? Are they protecting that in-ball? And I went back to a few of the games just to get a sense of the quality of ball that was going into the full-back line. And I think it's interesting that I can say that there wasn't a whole lot of pressure going on it. And when there isn't pressure, we're going to have a look at it here. When there isn't pressure on the in-ball, sure, no cornerback can defend it. And what I'm talking about is the distance away. Instead of getting tight up on the guys that are kicking the ball in. This is the opening minutes of the Kildare-Dublin game. Now, young Cooper is very unfortunate. He slips. The damage is done at that stage. The ball has got into the hands of Paddy Brophy and a lovely finish. But the point goes back here, the ball in from Johnny Doyle. It's similar here. OK, Keane O'Sullivan, he's actually slipping there. But the number 4, I think it's Kevin O'Brien, way too far off his man. No block, no pressure. You must be at least diving, or he must feed your body in some way as the ball is coming in. Once again here, Daniel Goulding put in the diagonal, as I've often said here, with a little bit of nuance on it. It's kind of wing side, it's favouring it. OK, they get away with the break this time. But on another occasion, they won't. Again, Brendan's hands out, shepherding him somewhere. But you actually have to get your hand in and put pressure on that ball. Now,
I think one of the elements, Kevin, in the full back line, under Pat Gilroy's era, they were very well protected and they had a lot of guys back there, and it's a very big change in style the way Jim Gavin has approached the game. And I think one of the areas that Dublin need to improve is their work rate out the field. They're not playing with the same intensity that Tyrone or Mayo played with today. They've got through the championship with a lot of comfort to date, and they haven't met the intensity levels. We saw it rattled Mayo today for the first time.
I guarantee you that Dublin managed, they're a clever bunch. There's people watching every aspect of their games on tape or live or whatever. They will have spotted that. They will have been working on that for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I expect a big improvement in that area to give that extra bit of protection. A small bit of pressure on the ball, the pass is never as good, and you have the chance then to do your business.
The analysis of it as well, a lot of teams are measuring turnovers, but it's not just the high reel turnovers that people remember, the video clips where you're knocking the ball out of somebody's hands and launching another attack. It's those hands-on, getting hands-on to your physical opponent and putting them under pressure, so the ball going in isn't perfect. You see examples of it all the time. Ball goes over the sideline, goes over the end line. It's not necessarily always a bad kick pass, it's because somebody has put the pressure on, has made the effort to close that 1 or 2 yards down just to really put the emphasis on the kick pass.
And in your experience, if a team has had a relatively easy run, as Dublin have had a comfortable run, is it hard then to suddenly up the game and intensity?
Great point.
It definitely is.
Saw that today.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean,
Mayo were rattled for that first 25 minutes today. They hadn't met the intensity that the Tyrone brought to the game, and Mayo had the experience. They now have leaders. They're at an age profile where they're developed. They're in a different stage of development. Dublin still have a lot of young players, still a lot of 19, 20-year-olds out there. And, the ante is going to be up from here on in for Dublin, and they're going to have to be ready for it.
In training, because I believe the intensity at the training sessions of all the top teams now is at such a pitch, you can change a bad culture or a bad habit, when you've been having easy games in the provincial championship or the quarters. And I would expect definitely to see an improvement. I'd be hugely surprised.
Maybe they're A versus B games, or they're intense
indeed.
games.
Yeah.
OK, well, prediction time then.
Des, I think it's a case of a lot of experience, a lot of know-how against youth and pace, and I think that Dublin will just have too much from it. And I think if Dublin's forward line clicks, they will run out winners.
Philip?
Yeah, same as Ciaran. I think there's that pace. We see that I talk about it all the time. Gaelic football is all about pace now, and the team that has the pace can break down any blanket defence. That's how you break it down, and I just see Dublin having too much. I could see them by 5 or 6 points probably.
A different question to finish on, Kevin. Sure. Who do you think Mayo would prefer to play?
That's a hard question.
Sorry.
Who would Mayo prefer to play? Honest to God, I don't know. But what I will say is this: if the 4 teams were lined up right beside. The best footballers of the 4 teams are from the Kingdom. The best footballers. But that's not as simple as that, of course, because there's pace, there's hunger, there's injuries, there's the mileage. All this has to come into it. For me, the Kerry defence are going to be under huge pressure. I don't see that with the injuries now that we're hearing and their general disposition over the last 12 months, I don't think they have the legs to stick with the pacey Dublin attack.
Right. That's a nightmare for Dublin 3 going for them to beat Kerry.